Welcome to the Cold Call Benchmarks podcast, the show where top sellers break down exactly how they're hitting or chasing quota. No fluff, just everything tactical, the things you can implement right now. Our guest today is Jason Rodenthal from Uplead. He's been one of the quota crushers over there. And I don't know if you saw his recent post where he broke down how exactly he hit his quota. So he's been absolutely crushing. Welcome to the podcast, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
Oh, I can't complain. Last day of the quarter, so always a crazy day.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining. It's literally June 30th as we record this. So the very last day, and this week is pretty much like 4th of July and everything is gone.
Exactly. This week's a crazy week. I'm sure everyone's getting or hearing the just checking in email, trying to get them over, but we all know what that does.
Sounds good. Let's get into the juicy part, Jason. So tell us about what's your quota right now.
What's my quarter looking like? Quarter's looking
Quota.
pretty good from quota. Sorry, yes. So my quota right now, so I'm ramping right now. So my quota this quarter is 165, but traditionally I'm based on a 187.5 quota quarterly.
Quarterly closed one revenue, right?
Closed one revenue. Yep.
Do you self-source
So
your pipeline?
yeah, for me, I am doing full outbound for Uplead. So they brought me in to do a all outbound process and see if they want to go that route.
Well, props to you, Jason. It's not easy to be generating leads and then closing them too. Not many people are doing that.
No, it's how we got into sales originally, right? Back
Yes,
when I got into sales, everyone was a full cycle sales rep.
100%. So, Jason, you are ramping right now, and obviously, many things can go wrong. It's a new company. Everything can go absolutely smoothly, which rarely happens. So, tell us about what's keeping you up at night, about hitting your numbers.
Not honestly, now it's not about staying up at night to hit the numbers. It's knowing I do enough during the day so I could peacefully sleep at night. And that's been my newest change when I made this transition because the late nights, it's great. But I had a great director once say the best reps can get everything done between 9 and 5 or 9 and 6, be able to cut off in the evening, and that's what my approach has really allowed me to do. I cut off and spend that family time. So for me, I don't let it get to my sleep anymore. But if you're asking what are those ones, it's those few deals that are those stray deals I like to push to the very last day of the month or the last day of the quarter. Those are the ones that keep me up at night. The ones that don't want to commit till they're hoping for that. It's the last day. What are you going to do for me today?
100%, yeah, renegotiating. Okay. Other than that, other than this few deals that might be getting delayed, what would you say if you were to miss this quarter? I'm sure you're gonna hit it, but if you hypothetically thinking, if you were to miss this quarter, what would be the number one reason why?
Not always keeping my foot on the gas. And what I mean by that is you got to always dedicate the time to not just push your pipeline, your opportunity through your pipeline, but keep that top of the funnel full. And you'll have those days where you can't make any prospecting calls, but then you got to really recognize the next day you got to double down. So for me, that would be the reason why it's needing to double down on those days, because sometimes when you do full cycle sales, you could be in a project that you think is going to be an hour. 5 hours later, you got done with the project and it ate up your day, but it's a bigger opportunity and you're happy to do it. So you just got to remember the next day to constantly fill that funnel, because otherwise the work you put in from all the prior weeks, it's worth nothing. You can't, if I'm taking a week off, if I know I'm taking a week off, I'm purposely not adding in prospects the week before, because I know it's almost a waste and I'm going to have to restart them. I rather finish my prospecting off, kind of bring people forward a step, than start net new knowing that they're going to go 5 days without hearing anything from me. Because then that initial conversation, that initial email, that initial phone call, that initial touch means nothing.
100% completely agree with you. Now let's move on to the more tactical stuff. You mentioned you are big on prospecting, self-sourcing all of your pipeline. So walk us through your day from your very first dial to your last DM. How are you prospecting? What tools are you using? Basically, like break down the Pandora's box.
Pandora's box. We have like here at Uplead, we have a really tight go to market motion, and we watch all the pennies for that reason when we're doing it. So we're using outreach for our sequencing to keep us engaged and on target with all of our messaging. We're using Salesfinity. We got for our parallel dialer. It's the only way I can actually cover as much of the market as I need by having a sequencer along with a parallel dialer. It's really allowing me to stay on top of my data. And then we use Uplead. We have to use our data, right? We got to be able to
Yeah.
get in touch with the people. So I use all of our Uplead data for the outbound process. Those are really the three parts of our tech stack. And then we also have like, I use Sales Navigator. I feel like Uplead's a good complement to a Sales Navigator, but the three main parts of my tech stack is going to be outreach for my sequencing. You guys are working with you for my phone and my parallel dialer. I
Yes.
obviously we use Salesforce. That's our CRM. I think every sales guy hates their CRM and loves their CRM because we're all bad at entering the data into it, but we need it. And then that's that's our tech stack.
Um, well, I'm glad you guys are using Salesfinity and seeing value from that. That's great. And obviously, tools are not gonna work by themselves. You need to use them and do the right thing. Otherwise, they're just subscriptions in your Brex credit cards. Tell us about your list building process because it's a very important piece of the prospecting. If your list is bad, then no matter what dialer you use, you're not gonna see the results. So how are you building lists? Do you start from Sales Navigator or like do you use some like intent signals, use ChatGPT? Like tell
So
us
we
the
use
magic.
Uplead. Start with Uplead. For us, it all starts in Uplead. But yeah, it all comes to the intent data. I've been in the data field, or the date, not intent data, data. I've been in the data field for a decade. I've worked at a lot of the providers, but it all comes down to the data and how fresh it is. So what I first start with is building out a search criteria based on our total addressable market in Uplead, where we've spent the most time because I analyzed our closed won deals over the last 2 years. So I targeted it on the industries that we did the best in. And then I know my ICP, who I target, whether it's a VP of sales, head of marketing, a CEO. You have different messagings for each one of those. And that's really where I start. From there, I do layer on intent. We have a partnership with Bombora, and their intent data comes into our system. So from identifying those two aspects alone, I have my total addressable market, and then find my sales addressable market because I can find out who's in market now for an offering like Uplead. And that's really where I start building out my searches, right? And you said it comes down to the data when we're putting that information into your platform. So what we do when I download our data, the greatest thing with Uplead is we do that instant verification. I know my data is good, my ICP is good, and then it's
Mm,
really the messaging. So what are they going to say when they pick up the phone? And just really being prepared. And what I've done for myself is for my sequencing, I base my sequencing on verticals. So I have different sequences for different verticals that we do well in, and my messaging resonates for for those verticals. So that way, if I know I'm calling into one, I know my voicemails for that vertical will be completely different than if I'm calling into like a tech vertical, for example, or a specific vertical.
thanks for the breakdown. Appreciate it. And with that being said, all different sales reps have different styles. Some people are like crushing the TikToks and new LinkedIn vertical videos, social selling. Some are like building some email systems and whatnot. And some people pretty much pick up the phone and make phone calls. I'm curious where your meetings are coming from right now.
Majority of my meetings are coming from the phone. We're starting, like I've been putting out more LinkedIn. I'm getting more traction on LinkedIn right now, but majority of my meetings come from the phone. I would say around 70% of my meetings come from the phone, and the other 30% is a combination of my email messaging and like my LinkedIn engagement and my network.
I see. When you are running your sequences on outreach, do you have all those multi-channel steps or you just run phone-only sequences?
I run a multi-channel approach because, like, if you're on LinkedIn, I know you are. We all see it. Phone's dead. Email's dead. LinkedIn. If you believed everyone, I don't think there is any motion in the sales world that isn't dead. And what it
Mm,
comes down to is that's right and it's wrong. The one motion by itself may be dead, but you have to do a combination of those motions to get the response. Your LinkedIn, your social posts. That's why we're here. Like one of the reasons we probably have all communicated at one point in time is off of a social post, right? And it's a different type of messaging than what you're doing on the phone. Social, I feel you're building credibility a lot with people. On the phone, you're calling for the meeting, but that credibility comes into account later on, right? When they're coming
Yes,
back and when you're messaging off of things they've posted. So I think it's a combination.
I see, 100%. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. So now let's move on to the part where we can talk a little bit about your go-to-market ideas. Obviously, as a successful seller, you probably must be running different ideas, testing what's working and what's not. And I'm curious, like, have you recently tried any new idea that worked like crazy, like you were pretty much blown away?
Yeah, when we went to those vertical, when we started analyzing the data, originally when we started with outreach, we had a couple of sequences where we were just customizing everything. But then when we went back and like, let's really analyze the data because anyone can use data, right? Anyone can use like any company in theory, you can use contact data or company data, but you want to see where you have your best results. So when we went and analyzed our closed one rate, our closed won industries as well as our closed lost industries to see companies we should stay away from that are costing us money, right? They're churning faster, as well as the companies that aren't churning but are actually renewing. And we're notice, and then we mix that with the net new business on top to see are there any similarities. Once we did that, then what we did is we took those cadences and we changed them. We killed off the original cadence which that I built out, and we changed them by the verticals we did really well in. So we changed the cadences to use similar language in those verticals, and we got really good results. For one of the verticals, for every 200 contacts I was uploading, I was booking 8 meetings. Like 8 demos were being booked off of a 200 upload. So that's not just responses; those were actual like demos that I knew if I uploaded 200 contacts, I guaranteed I would have 8 meetings booked at minimum. And that was on one vertical. So me and my CEO, when we noticed that, we decided we should double down on that vertical. And that's one of the great things about being at a small company is like we get to test things like that and see those actions and really refine to see what's working, what's not. Can we try new things? Are we going to get the same results? That actually set a very high benchmark, as you can imagine, when
Yeah.
you analyze and you're like, wow, 8 meetings every 200. Let's keep going. Is this repeatable in other verticals? And we're starting that now and testing it in other verticals, but we want to keep that core vertical and keep feeding the beast in that vertical because once you've identified something like that, you want to make sure that you're keeping that area. As you know, if you find a vertical where you're finding a ton of success, you don't want to
Yeah.
cut that off just to go find a new one. You got to make sure you're still feeding that at all times.
That's really smart. That's really smart going vertical because at the end of the day, you can say, oh, whole world is my customer. When everyone is your customer, no one is your customer. So finding that vertical, you have the upper hand and the market is competitive too. So
Hmm.
you have the upper hand is probably the right market to go after. And actually, one of my questions was to ask you, is this a repeatable process? But you are
We're
still
we're
working on
seeing
that.
it. Yeah. We found 3 verticals that we do really well in. Are we getting those 8 meetings per? We're still ramping it up to see and getting the contacting because there's one of me. So it's also I can do oh so much with Salesfinity and my parallel dialer, but I got to keep up on the other activities,
Yes.
the LinkedIn, the email. So there's all that comes into play. But we have identified several verticals where we know we do really well. And not only have the meetings shown, we see a much faster close rate in those verticals.
Mm.
So one of the verticals that I mentioned, the one that had 8, I booked one of those demos, got booked right before Juneteenth. It was on a Monday. The demo got booked on June right before on Wednesday. We had the demo on Monday. It closed yesterday. It was
Super
doing the
fast.
vertical, having the intent data, all that came into play, and the messaging hit home because they mentioned the messaging that they've received.
I see. So, Jason, if someone that's listening to this podcast decides to replicate your success with going vertical, how would you recommend them to go about implementing exact same play, like number one do this, number two do this, and three?
Yeah. First thing I would do is look at account data, right? I'm a data guy.
Where do you
I've
get
been in the
that?
field for what?
Where do you get the account data?
Like for me, I'm using Uplead, right? So for what I did was I uploaded all of our account data into Uplead.
Okay.
And I said I wanted to see firmographics, technographics, revenue, company sizes, all of that, industries.
Okay.
Because what I wanted to do was identify our total addressable market. So that's like the top level. Then I took that down to the next level of seeing, okay, it's good that I have this industry, but where do we play well? Is it over 100 employees, below 100, whatever it may be? So I started looking at similarities that way. And I built the
How does
lookalike.
how does a rep who doesn't have access to where they are
A
winning
data
can?
tool. Yeah, reps have access to LinkedIn. So similar to what you said, you can go onto LinkedIn to get some of that high level data if you don't have a database, because LinkedIn will at least give you employee counts by if you click into it. So what I would do is build a lookalike, right? And then I would layer that type of information into a search engine of some sort. If you don't have a data provider, what you could do is if you have LinkedIn Navigator, at that point you could build out a search based on that, right? That would be the first thing, is to really identify your total addressable market. And I think it's just as important as identifying your total addressable market, identify the ones that you don't want to sell to, the
Mm,
accounts that cost your company money, especially if you're a smaller organization. Those accounts that turn a lot are costing you money.
mm.
And SaaS, what I always learned when I got into sales, a client that's a 1 year client is a cost for the company. And I kind of put that into perspective. So I look at that as well. What companies can cost us or are going to cost resources, whatever it may be, because you only have so many resources too. And you build that as a kind of like a no-fly zone, right? So now you have your TAM, and then you have your no-fly zone that you can layer on top so you can get really layered in. And then from there, I know you said, what do you do? I then layer in the intent data. So then that's when you really need that provider. But if you didn't have the provider, I would start with identifying my total addressable market, my sales, and then move that to my sales addressable. And the sales addressable is really where you take that vertical, bring in maybe company size, revenue, employee counts, things to that nature. If you aren't going to use this system like Uplead, you're gonna have to rely on the LinkedIn or LinkedIn Navigator data. So revenue is not a reported one, but you could at least go off of company size. So that's kind of how I would do it if I didn't have a system.
Sounds good. Thanks
But
for breaking it down.
yeah, it's hard when you said without a system. That's gonna. I think for me, I've always at most organizations I always ask, what are you gonna arm me with to be effective as
I
a
agree.
sales professional? I think that's an important question if you're interviewing.
100%. All right. So talk about this idea, which is crazy, like 200 reach outs, 8 meetings booked. Doesn't happen always. I'm sure you've tried other ideas, which probably
Yeah.
didn't do as good as
Really?
this. How about another experiment that you thought would fly like crazy, but was absolute flop?
Well, we wanted to try an idea. Me and my CEO, we thought it was a great idea. We tried an idea where we use stuff with like PayPal and things to that nature, and we knew that
Different
way
topic.
we could get into branch onto PayPal's their email, right? Because everyone has gotten emails from PayPal. So we went with that, as we wanted to see if we could try something with that. And we got a couple leads from it. So it worked in that sense, like it generated some meetings. But I'm a data guy, and after 2 weeks, I was noticing the campaigns that were driving more opportunities were the vertical strict campaigns compared to this general one that we were running to see, because we knew if it would hit big. So we loaded it up really nicely. But when we analyzed the data after, I think it was like 2 to 3 weeks, we decided to cut the campaign.
Mm,
Wasn't giving enough return. It wasn't even for the cost of the campaign. It was the time, like the cost of time for me and the other reps. It didn't pay when we were looking at the close one ratio off of that, even with using the right verticals, since it was more of a spray and pray messaging, since it wasn't vertical centric.
mm. I see what makes sense.
If we can kind of go back to the old days where you used to get a
Yeah.
lot of meetings without going super vertical, super, and we're like, it was worth a shot. And we quickly decided we got to, what separates us is that we are vertical, is that we get into the weeds in those verticals and we want to be advisors. So you can't be an advisor if you're doing that spray approach, even if it is to the correct verticals. So that's why we killed it, but we didn't kill it completely. We actually worked that campaign in to some of our others because it had success. So we used some of the parts of that campaign and worked it into other campaigns. So the emails that did well on that campaign got saved, and we're working those into different outreaches.
I see. Well, now I know that I always wondered when I saw those LinkedIn posts where someone was like 2 cent, sent a message, and then maybe they got one reply and said like, "This is the best
We saw that too. That's where like the certain
thing you
ideas
have."
came from. That was one of ours. Like we saw that idea, we liked it. We gave it a try for our vertical. It didn't really work. So what we did was we liked some other messaging that we came out with in that same exact campaign, and we said, you know what? It's not a waste because we had data. Again, we got data. It's
Yes.
not always about the contact and account data, but had meeting book data, we had scheduling data, and we could see what areas was working from that campaign. And then if we found, okay, the first email worked, we got a lot of responses. Well, maybe we could work that into another campaign later on after it's been very and have it now more specific to a vertical. And that's getting better results now. So it wasn't a complete failure because we were able to take that data and rework it into other avenues.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I'm very excited about the next part of our podcast, which is the Would You Rather Sales Edition. Basically, this is a rapid fire questions. You have to pick one, okay?
Gosh, be nice to me.
Book 3 meetings day with bad fit ICP or one with perfect fit.
One with perfect fit every day of the week.
Unlimited emails or unlimited calls.
Ooh, that's a hard. Calls. Hate emails. Calls. Get personal.
More pipeline or better pipeline.
Better every day. More isn't better, better is better.
Would you take one meeting or 10 cold call connects?
One guaranteed meeting.
Objection with no budget or already have a vendor.
Already have a vendor. It means they value business intelligence.
Your team misses quota, but you crush it. Celebrate or cringe?
Both. Celebrate your little successes for you, but cringe because on a company side, everyone on the company has to succeed for the company to be successful.
Zoom info or Uplead?
Uplead. That was
Okay.
an easy one for me.
All right, now we have the almost the final piece of it of our podcast where we're gonna be running through some like sayings, and you just need to tell us what comes to your mind.
Okay.
Best cold call opener you've ever heard or used.
Calling a book a meeting with you.
Your average touches to book a meeting.
Average campaign is 18 for me, but my average touch is 7 till I book a meeting.
Cold email subject line you'd bet quota on.
I don't have one for this.
You
Never
can't
bet
bet
my
your
quota on a cold email subject line.
Okay, fair. Your go-to call to action.
For a VP of sales and VP of marketing, it's to get a meeting. For a CEO, it's to get an introduction to the correct person.
Worst cold call you've ever made.
Ooh. I took a stint in the manufacturing space. You put a tech guy in the manufacturing space and we do cold calls. It's very funny because we didn't know manufacturing too well. So I'll take anyone from that vertical.
Okay. First thing you do after getting told not interested.
Ask why.
Okay. Your number one tip to coach a rep stuck in a slump.
Keep swinging. Don't get frustrated. Keep swinging. That's the most important thing. Because we've all had slumps. I've been there. Anyone in sales has been in a slump, and it's hard not to get down. But you got to keep swinging, get back in the batter's box, whatever you want to call it. But you got to keep swinging and hitting for the fences.
100%. One person you'd hire as your first SDR, no matter what.
Is it a trade or a person? Like, I don't know the people anymore on the SDR side as much, besides the SDRs I'm working with or I've worked
Maybe
with in
the
the last few years.
qualities.
But if one trait, I'm going to say really tenacity. Being an SDR is not easy. You get a lot of no's, and you got to be willing to put up with that. It's nothing you did, but you're doing one of the hardest jobs. You get the most no's in a day compared to anyone. I'm doing full cycle sales, and I could say an SDR has a harder job than me because they get more no's and they get shot down more. So you got to have really tough skin, and be able to really shake it off. I think of it like a sport. Every new at bat is brand new. You can't let the last one get you down.
Love it. Well, Jason, that's a wrap on the cold call benchmarks. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining. And thank you guys for watching the podcast today or listening to it somewhere. If you took one play from today, hit that follow button, leave us a review, and share with the reps who are chasing quota, who you think might find value from this podcast. And until next time, see you guys again. Thank you again, Jason. It was
Thank
very
you.
nice chatting.